Well, President Trump taking aim at tax regulations imposed by former President Obama. Mr. Trump today signing executive orders directing Treasury officials to take another look at tax rules and oversight of too-big-to-fail financial institutions.
I'm also issuing 2 directives that instruct Secretary Mnuchin to review the damaging Dodd-Frank regulations that fail to hold Wall Street firms accountable. I mean, they've done really, in many cases, the opposite of what they were supposed to. These regulations enshrine too big to fail and encourage risky behavior.
Well, joining me now to discuss President Trump's executive orders today, his upcoming tax reform plan, and much more is Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief. And Steve, let's start with this announcement about there's going to be massive tax cuts that he popped up with today. What's your reaction to him saying something like that in the middle of all this other legislative effort?
It's made my weekend. I almost enjoyed that more than a baseball game. Massive tax cuts. And I'm glad they're putting it back on the agenda. The big mistake the Republicans made in the House and the Congress was leading with health care instead of a good tax cut to get this economy really moving. While confidence is high, people after a while are going to want to say, okay, I'm confident, but where's the deliverables? Well, I want to feel this real prosperity. And so the quicker they get a big tax cut done, I hope they make it retroactive, ignore the eye-shade budget people who say, oh, you shouldn't do that. Go do it. Get a stimulus to the economy, the gift that keeps on giving, because not only do you get immediate more paycheck, bigger paycheck, but also more investing in the future. So it's win-win.
I can't give you the years off the top of my head, but there were a handful of tax reform legislation that was retro back to maybe the date in which they had conference committee or something along those lines. So they would go back a few months anyway, maybe not the whole year. But it has been done where they've gone retroactive. But we talked the last time you and I were together. You're not for this border adjustment tax at all.
It's utterly counterproductive. The point of tax cuts is to cut taxes, not put a new tax on, which is just going to go up. It's hidden, and it's a 20% national sales tax and imports. It's going to hit the very people who elected Donald Trump. Typical car, up $2,500. Gasoline, up 30 cents a gallon. Everything you buy at Walmart, Kmart, and other stores going up. So you're going to slam the very people who elected you? It's not good for the economy, not good politics.
Yeah, but Steve, you've always been for much bigger reform than what I don't hear anything really, really big. He's talking about massive cuts. He's probably talking about the number of brackets, maybe the rates of the brackets. But as far as moving the pieces of the puzzle around, are you expecting a lot?
Now, I think if they get a decent tax cut now, especially if they get rid of things like the alternative minimum tax, which is a huge waste of effort, get rid of the death tax, slash the corporate tax, cut those rates, increase deductibles for people, good, step in the right direction. What I think will happen and hope will happen, that after next year, if we do things right and we get control of the Senate with 60 seats instead of 52, we'll then do a massive tax reform. Remember, Reagan had 2 big tax changes, in 1981 and again in 1986.
Right.
So this one doesn't preclude an even bigger one down the road.
Yeah, and in 1986, because I was doing taxes for a living in those days, in fact, I used to refer to Donald Trump because he was the real estate developer in New York who screamed like a banshee because of the fact he says, give me back my higher tax rates, but give me back my deductions, because they took a lot of deductions away in that 86 Tax Reform Act. I suspect they're probably going to try and do that again.
Ultimately, they will. And by the way, that 1986 Tax Act, even though it cut the top tax rate from 50% down to 28%, it passed the Senate 97-3. So if you set the parameters, get the mandate from the people, a big, big, good tax reform can happen. Maybe even the flat tax. Never hopeful.
Keep shooting. Keep pulling for it, Steve. I'm with you on that one, by the way. I'll be right there with you. The executive orders reducing, taking a look at Dodd-Frank. What's your reaction to that?
Absolutely needed. One of the things that's held back this economy, the massive regulations from Dodd-Frank. Banks spend more money now on getting the compliance and all the bureaucrats that now infest their buildings than they are out making loans. That's one of the reasons, including things done by the Fed, is why small and new businesses have unreliable lines of credit. Households do, which is one reason why we have very few small businesses opening the way we should, who are the job creators.
Well, especially because Dodd-Frank hurt the small community banks more than they did the J.P. Morgans of the world. So.
They don't have the departments to have 5,000 lawyers complying with this stuff. Government
shutdown possibility? You handicapping that?
Republican Congress shutting down a Republican president government, not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Well said.